go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Inspiring Connections episode 10. Can you believe it's 10 double figures? We made it.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching video, you can tell we're outside. For those watching audio, you might hear some wind noise, but we're outside. It's springtime. It's a little chilly. We have our jackets on.
Yeah, it's still a little chilly today.
Yeah, it should be a little bit warmer, but you know, springtime, other than flowers coming out and everything getting green, it's time to get in shape, right?
It's also time for like business owners, entrepreneurs, everybody, I think, should try to do an activity that will pump their blood into their hearts.
Yep. And on this week's show, I think we got a great guest for that.
Yes, we do.
You know, I mean, you talk about business, and business people sit behind the desk with a computer, and you know, you don't get up. And
today we have the executive vice president for Barefoot Proximity, Sean Brown.
Yes, and he's an avid runner.
Oh yeah, he started running I think in 2009, and he gives us really great tips. If you want to start running, or you've been a runner for a long time but you've been feeling some pain, you know, this is the show to listen to or watch.
Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get right into it with Sean Brown. And while you're watching that or listening to it, we're going to go on our walk.
Yes.
So let's go. We'll see you in a little bit. Sean, welcome to PodJam TV Live.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now you know Sean, Misty, right?
Yeah, he runs and he loves to run. Even if it's winter, he runs. It's like, wow.
That's true.
So why don't we get right into it? Sean, we know you're a big runner and big into fitness. How'd you get started running in the first place?
Well, you kind of touched on it just a minute ago when you were saying that it's very important for business people to also consider the other aspects of their lives, including fitness and keeping themselves healthy. And for me, 2009, one fall morning in September, I woke up and frankly looked at myself in the mirror and was disgusted with what I had become. I had focused all my time and energy sitting, behind a computer screen and not exercising at all, and decided that was the day that I was going to begin turning things around. And so that's actually what got me started running, was really understanding that, just sitting behind a computer and working and doing nothing else is just not a healthy thing to do. And frankly, I wanted to be a better role model for my kids as well. I didn't want to see them seeing their dad just kind of sit around.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
It's a good.
Yeah, it's a good example too. You know,
like for our audience, probably those who want to start running. How do they get started, with running? How, like, if I want to run, how do I get started running?
Sure. Well, one of the great things about running is it's so simple. I mean, you literally can get dressed, run out the door, and you're beginning. I think one of the important things for people to understand, if they haven't been exercising prior to this, is to start slowly.
Okay.
You'll find a lot of people, including myself. I did it 2 times before it actually kind of took for me running. And what happens is if you go out too hard, too fast at the beginning, you end up feeling injured, feeling like, man, this hurts, this is not enjoyable, and you end up walking away from it and not continuing with it. And so I think the really important thing for people who want to get started is to do it slowly. There is a program out there, freely available in a number of different places, called Couch to 5K. And what Couch to 5K does is it, over the course of about 9 weeks, takes you from sitting on the couch to being able to run a 5K, which is 3.1 miles, by the end of that program over the course of 9 weeks. And it does it in a very, very measured way. And allows you, it really sets you up for success, which I think is important, because it's nice to start running, but even better is to continue it, is to a year later be still running because you didn't find yourself just either completely discouraged by feeling like, oh, this is so difficult, or actually injuring yourself by trying to go too hard, too fast at the beginning. So Couch to 5K is a great way to start. That's something that you'll see in the notes for this is some links to an app for Couch to 5K. You can also just print out from the internet. If you search for Couch to 5K, you'll find a number of different places where that program begins, and it's easy to follow, and it also helps you get started and be successful doing it.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess that's very important. It's easy to get started. A lot of people get started. They get very motivated. Probably New Year's resolutions come into that, or springtime, or seasonal changes. And I'm gonna get out there and run. I'm gonna go crazy. And you're right, Sean. I mean, if you go too hard, and you might get discouraged, you might get injured, and that's no good.
Yeah, or you like wake up the following day and you feel really bad because your muscles are sore. You don't want to go anymore the next day.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of, once you get out there running and you've been doing it a while and you want to take it to the next level, any tips for people to do maybe longer runs or how they can get to the next level if they want to go beyond kind of the basics?
Yeah, sure. A couple of things. The first is attack that the same way I described the beginning part, which is if you want to begin to lengthen your runs and you're looking towards doing a longer race, a 10K or maybe even a half marathon, that you do that in a measured way, that you don't try to add a whole bunch of miles all at once, but rather add just a little bit each week and allow yourself to build up. Okay. And if you've really got the bug and you're really interested in continuing with it and actually improving your times and that type of thing, I would definitely suggest getting a coach. There are a number of coaches who just do wonders for people of all different capabilities. I know the coach that I work with works with people who run 2-hour, 45-minute marathons, which is incredible for a non-professional runner, all the way up to people who are just starting to try to get to their first 10K, and everywhere in between. And a good coach will also help you to set up that program to get it right so that, again, you don't go out too hard too fast, that you're adding in the right types of cross-training, that you're doing a little bit of strength work as well, because that'll become important as you want to aim for those longer and longer distances, that you're getting your entire body fit. Because one of the difficulties with running is that it really focuses a lot. It focuses on cardiovascularly, but in terms of the muscles, it focuses on the big muscle groups in your legs, and doesn't do a whole lot for the other muscles that are around there that are meant to help support. And so as you are looking at taking longer and longer distance running, it's becomes more and more important to also do some strength training to make sure that those supporting muscles are also ready for the task.
Oh, that's a very, very good tip.
Yeah, I would think
tip.
Yeah, I mean, larger muscle groups in the legs, but I would think the upper body, you don't really get a lot of work there, so you need some balance, and you need to, I would imagine, be careful about repetitive motion injuries and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is, the repetitive motion injuries are the number one injuries for longer distance runners, for that very reason, is that you really hammer away as your runs get longer and longer, and as the number of miles you're putting in a week get longer and longer. You can imagine you're hitting those same muscles over and over with every step that you take. So making sure that you're ready for the distances that you want to run, both from a cardiovascular point of view as well as from all of the muscles. You mentioned your upper body. Yes, that's certainly not something that you get a huge workout from when you're running, but the interesting thing is that if you aren't also fit in the upper body, that will take away from your lower body running. When your form breaks down later in longer runs, whether that form is up near your shoulders or it's down in your legs, one way or another, that'll take away from the efficiency of your running. And it can lead to injury. It can simply slow you down in case you're searching for a particular time on a race. So it is important to make sure that you take care of your entire body by doing some strength training that's beyond the muscles that are used for running.
Excellent. Now, beyond the training, I'm not sure if you want to speak to this.
Yeah. Of course. Like we were talking earlier. Oh, winter. Oh, I run. You run winter.
You run all year round, I would imagine.
Yes.
And you run, and you live in a northern climate, so you have to run in the cold, hot, and all that. So you have to kind of battle the elements a little bit.
Do you have a recommendation in terms of what type of shoes to wear and the clothing?
Sure. Well, let's start with the clothing. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I first started running was to dress yourself for your run in a way that is 20 degrees warmer than what it currently is outside. So today was about 55, 60 degrees in Ohio. And so I went out dressed like it was 80 degrees, and I felt perfect during my run today. During the winter time, it's 20 degrees, dress how you would if normally if it were 40 degrees. And so that can kind of help you judge how many layers am I putting on? Do I need a jacket? Do I need gloves? By thinking, I would say 15 to 20 degrees warmer than what the current outside temperature is. And then take into account the wind a little bit as well. When you get those gusts during the winter in particular, those can really make the air feel like it's a lot colder than it actually is. And so from a clothing point of view, that rule of thumb has helped me a ton, and it's something that I think people can easily figure out, and it can easily kind of help them get dressed properly for their run. In terms of the shoes, that's something that is such kind of a personal choice. There isn't a particular brand that I would say you should go out and get these shoes. What I would suggest, though, is once you've gotten yourself to the point where you have motivated yourself to get out there and you're doing it on a consistent basis, you're running maybe 3 times a week, make sure to get to your local running store and get fitted properly for your shoes.
That's a good tip.
It isn't just the size. There are different types of shoes for the different gaits. Some people pronate, some people supinate, some people are kind of right in the middle, and a qualified running store will actually watch you walk. They'll also sometimes put you on a treadmill, or maybe even just go outside the store and have you jog up and down the sidewalk, and they'll watch to see exactly what your gait looks like. And when they do that, they'll really help you find that right pair of shoes that's going to work well for not only the distances that you're going to run, but also kind of how you work mechanically today. And that's also a very big deal. I find a lot of people who begin running, they're just throwing on whatever, gym shoes they use to put them on, and then they head out and run in it, and suddenly they're sore, or their ankles are hurting them, that type of thing. So going out and getting fitted properly for a pair of running shoes is important. It's not, you won't find a correlation between price and something that's going to work well for you. It is purely a matter of getting the right shoe on your foot. And over the course of time, you're going to find a number of different ones that are going to work really well for you. I haven't stayed with the same model or the same brand the entire time I've been running. I've switched a few times, and whatever works for you at that point.
So it sounds like that professional fitting, and certainly
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, certainly not going to Walmart to get your running shoes. And no disrespect to Walmart, but I mean it's a very specialized function, and it's a high stress activity. So I would think it makes a big difference.
Plus, just one additional question in terms of what to wear. I think some people run in the evenings. Is there anything that you can recommend in terms of like safety?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to
I wish this weren't the case, but I've had far too many close calls, in particular with drivers. And it isn't just in the evening, which is the amazing thing to me, but still, being safe when you're out running is very, very important. And my own point of view on this is I have to take it upon myself, my own responsibility to be safer than the drivers that are around, because the reality, just like we see in many other things, is you've got people looking down at their phones, texting, they're on the phone,
not paying attention,
a blind spot. And I've actually been hit by side view mirrors before as people turn a corner not paying attention. It's terrible. So in particular, if you're going out at night, wear some reflective clothing for sure. There's lots of all of the different brands, the Brooks and Saucony and Asics and so on and so on. They all make great reflective clothing, and make sure to be wearing some. In addition, I would say, depending on where you're doing your run, you want to keep yourself personally safe as well. And so bring some kind of lighting for you. There are people who like to wear a headlamp. I do that when I do my either very early morning runs, or sometimes if I have to run in the evening, I'll wear that. There are people who like to wear their thing called knuckle lights, where it slips over your fingers. It's almost kind of the brass knuckle sort of feeling, only instead they're little flashlights, and they help you light your way so that you kind of see where you're going with that. But the reflective clothing is an absolute must if you're going to be running in the evening or in the early morning, one way or another, before it's really, really light out.
That's great. And I've also seen people with like those strobe lights or anything to get the driver's attention so that you can be seen well.
And I like what you said, Sean, where you said, stop texting, stop looking at your phone, because, have to be careful.
Exactly. You don't want to be
concentrate.
You want to make it home.
Yes, you do.
Now, Sean, we know obviously you're a executive vice president of technology. You're into tech. I know, Misty, you know that. He's a geek,
and he's into apps.
Into apps. So, and we are too.
Yes.
I mean, Misty calls me the app addict, so I'm downloading it. I always say, Misty, I got another, and it's like, oh, no big surprise, another app. So one of the areas now we're certainly not we walk. In fact, we're starting up for walking just last week, and we're going to get out there tomorrow. And we tried some apps, and you being an avid runner and technology geek, you would think that you would have some apps to recommend, or apps that you use,
or sites.
Anything in that area, apps or sites that you recommend for runners to keep track of their running, or and that type of thing.
Yeah, both for sure. I personally use. I have a Garmin GPS watch that I wear when I run, and Garmin has a website called Garmin Connect, and so when I'm done with my run, I have a little USB thing that actually syncs with my watch, and it uploads all of that data to the Garmin website so that I can look at my pace at any particular point along the run. I can see the elevation of the course that I run. It maps it against Google Maps, and so I can see exactly where I've gone and how long and so on. So that's very, very useful. But I would say that that's something that a lot of runners who are at least at the point kind of where they're taking on either half marathons or marathons are using that much data. I think to begin, there's a few of them. First of all, there's a couple of Couch to 5K apps for the iPhone, for Android, and so on. They work really well. That helped me a ton when I first started, because that's how I started, was by doing a Couch to 5K program. And I use the app to help me. The app will actually tell you it's now time to walk. It's now time to run. You can actually play one of your playlists of music in the background, so you can kind of listen to something as you're going, that work very well. There's another free app called Runkeeper. Runkeeper will keep track of your run as you go. It also maps it against mapping after the fact, keeps track of what your longest run, your fastest run, the fastest mile that you've gone, all of those types of things, freely available, and it works really, really well. I personally don't. When I first started, I really liked to bring my iPhone with me as I went, and so using these apps was very, very helpful. Now I've gotten to the point where I don't like to bring the phone along with me, but I know that tons and tons of my runner friends still do, and so I think that these apps can be helpful. Nike makes a great app, both for Android as well as for the iPhone, for their Nike Plus system. System that also keeps track of your runs, gives you all the reporting and data that you want afterwards, so works very, very well. And then finally, I'd say another aspect that has helped me a ton over the past couple of years is a website called Daily Mile. Daily Mile is, you can think of it almost as a Facebook for athletes, more particularly runners and triathletes and cyclists, but any type of athlete. And what it does is once I finish my run and I have the Garmin data, I can upload it to Daily Mile and post that, and then put a little indicator of how it went. This run was really difficult, or boy, was it hot out. It slowed me down a bit. And when you post it there, then your friends who are also on Daily Mile can, encourage you. Hey, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. I realize you're working towards a 10K. You're looking strong. I asked a ton of questions on Daily Mile, and that helped a lot as well. And so those are some of the apps and some of the websites that really made a difference for me, both when I started and I still use them to this day.
Excellent.
Daily mile is like your journal, I guess.
Yeah.
It is. That's the other thing that it does is it keeps track of. You can look back at your performance over the course of years now. For me, I've got 3+ years worth of data in there. So being able to look back and see, this was my highest week that I ever put in. This is the highest month. This is the best time I've ever had. It's all in there, and they do a great job of also doing some analysis for you on that data. It's kind of funny. They also translate things into funny things like number of donuts burned and so on. So you go out and you look at your past month and you say, oh, I burned 80 donuts or whatever it is.
That's awesome.
But what's great about that is we were talking earlier, it gives you motivation to continue because when you get started, especially if you're trying to get in shape or lose weight, it's a gradual process. You're going to see results over a long period of time. So having a journal like that, you're able to keep track of of your records, of your times, of your stats, and you're able to see some progress, which is really helpful. You mentioned the Nike. I had the Nike band on here.
Yeah.
If you can't see, and it's a great app. In fact, we're going to be getting the Jawbone up. I'm not sure if you heard of that.
Not only does it track your exercise, your running, walking, but it also tracks your sleeping time, how much sleep you got, how much deep sleep you get. I guess because it's correlated with
it's all part of it, So there's a lot of great stuff out there. Now, getting back into more of the analog type of stuff here, nutrition plays a big role, I would think, in getting fit, and especially running. It's a high stress, high stress activity. It takes a lot of energy. Pre and post runs, nutrition. What should people be eating, drinking? Is there kind of a special diet?
Should they be eating?
Right. Should they be eating before, after? Is some recommended? Do you have a routine that you go through? Can you give some recommendations for folks?
Sure. The first I'd say is this is another one of those aspects of running that you really need to kind of figure out for yourself what works best.
Okay.
But I think in general, the advice is if you feel okay on your runs, don't eat anything beforehand.
Oh, okay.
In fact, most people, even like before a marathon, they might take in maybe 150 or 200 calories worth of, half a bagel or a sports drink or that type of thing, but they tend not to put a bunch in their stomach. As you mentioned, when you're running, you're really moving your entire body around, and so having food or even a lot to drink sloshing around in there is actually very uncomfortable and can really impact how well you run. And so in general, I try to eat very, very little before I run. I also tend to run very early in the morning. And so the advice that most people get is if you do want to eat something, that's fine. Do it at least a half an hour, if not 45 minutes before you're going to start your run. Give it a chance to settle and digest in that, so it's not just kind of sitting there in your stomach. And so if you're running very early in the morning, getting up yet another 45 minutes earlier is kind of tough. So that routine works well for me. When I get back from a run, if it's a relatively short run, and for me, I would say a relatively short run would be anything, less than 10 miles, then there isn't anything that you really need to have right afterwards. If you're going longer than 10 miles, then you've gotten yourself to a point where you're probably depleted both in your carbs as well as protein. And so you want a mix of carbs and protein as soon as you can. Right when you walk back in the door, if you can, you've got about this half an hour, 45-minute window where your system is completely set up. It's craving the protein to begin repairing the muscles, and it's craving the carbs to refill the stores that you've got inside for them. So I tend to do both of those. I'll eat a tiny little bit, half an hour, 45 minutes before my run, or maybe even nothing. And then when I get back from the run, I try to take in some carbs and some protein as soon as I can, as soon as it's comfortable.
So it sounds like it's a type of food, obviously carbs and protein, and timing is very important and much more important afterwards, but in that kind of in the half-hour window to get the most effect.
How about what to drink? Do you recommend them drinking water, drinking something during the run, after?
Yeah, this is, again, one of those things that you tend to figure out for yourself.
Okay.
And the other part of it is weather, for sure. Like I said, today it was 70 degrees here when I went out to run. And so just because I'm not acclimated yet to the warmer weather here in Ohio, I took my water bottle with me and just sipped as I went, kind of thing. And that's just one of those things that you learn after doing it a little while, is when you think you're going to need water and when you're not. The sort of rule of thumb that I have in my own head for when I actually bring something along with me is if I feel like I'm going to be out for more than 45 minutes running, then I think it's necessary to bring something to drink. If you don't have like water fountains or that type of thing along the way, then I'll actually carry a water bottle with me. And then whether or not you take something like a sports drink, again, this is one of those whatever works for you kind of thing. I tend to not do well with sports drinks while I'm running. Again, it feels like it sloshes around in my stomach. But I do there are energy gels that you can get. They're in little foil packages that actually get you the carbs that is a good thing to have in the middle of your run. So it gets those into your body without being a whole bunch of liquid to go along with it. And that, for me personally, feels better. And so that's what I use.
Okay.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, it's a great tip. And I was wondering
like for us, remember, we noticed, I like what he said, that depends on you. Like, remember the last time we walked, we didn't eat anything.
Yeah.
It was like, it felt good.
Yeah, you suggested that. I think that worked out well for us. In fact, we'll probably do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. And having nothing on your stomach. And the minute we wake up, we go walking right away. So
it's a fantastic way to start your day. It really is.
Absolutely. Now, you've been running a while, especially, I know Misty and I, we're not 20 years old. So, I would think, I wish, right? So I think injuries, and we talked a little bit about that before, any way you can stop from getting shin splints or other injuries, what's the best approach for that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. They say that at any given time that 8 out of 10 runners at some point are going to have some type of running injury, whether it's shin splints or runner's knee, ITB syndrome is another big one that runners tend to get. And really the thing with those are related to two things. The first is what we talked about before, is don't go out too hard too fast. Work yourself up to either the speeds or the distances that you want to be running. I know for sure that this is something that I did poorly at the beginning. The very first marathon that I ever ran, which was the Chicago Marathon in 2010, halfway through the marathon, I ended up, my knee just screeching pain, and I ended up having to walk the second half of the marathon after looking forward to that for so long in my life, that was something that I wanted to do, ended up very disappointing. And the reality is I went too hard too fast, not on that particular day, but in all of the training that I did. And I think that that's something that's easy to do. It's easy to become impatient and want to see the results part of what running can bring you quickly rather than over a long period of time. So I think making sure to go out in a measured way, and this is another area that a coach can really help. If you're working with a qualified coach, they're not going to let you do that. They're going to set up a plan that is really going to just increment you little by little, and it's going to also get the feedback that you need so that you can say back to your coach, hey, I'm feeling pretty good, or I'm starting to get a little soreness in my shins, whatever the case is, and they can help you back away, give you the advice of icing and that type of thing that will help with those types of injuries. But that's the number one thing that causes people to head down the road of shin splints or those types of things is really trying to go too hard, too fast, or too long. And then the second is form. There is such thing as good and bad running form. There isn't one running form that's perfect, and there isn't one running form that's horrible either. But the other part of the reality is a lot of people who begin and aren't working with a coach or really don't spend any time trying to find out what is good running form, you can really end up hurting yourself. What you'll notice, you can see anybody doing this. You go out on any given day and watch somebody go running by. A lot of people will really land on their heel of their foot as their front foot comes forward. In that motion of hitting the ground on your heel is a braking motion. It's the type of thing where when it hits, it causes about 8 times the force of your body weight to then be sent up the chain of your leg. So it hits your ankle, then your knee, then your hip, and so on. And that's not a good thing, especially when you do it over and over and over. It's not a good thing. And so really paying attention to form is also another thing that can help you try to avoid those types of injuries. And there's really kind of 2 simple rules that you can follow that will help guide you to the right form. And one of them is to quicken your cadence, and that means how often your feet are hitting the ground. You don't want to be taking these really long strides that have your front foot way out in front of you, because it's impossible not to land on your heel if you're doing that. And so if you can quicken your cadence, that causes you to take shorter steps. And the other thing is to have your feet come down beneath you rather than out in front of you. And just those 2 simple aspects of running, if you can focus on improving those, or if you're just beginning running, focus on starting with doing those, you'll do yourself some favors, and you'll avoid too much time, sitting with ice bags on your knees or your hips or whatever. And believe me, I've been there and done those as well. So I'm not saying that I have done it perfectly, but I think paying attention to those 2 things, one, your running form, and then the other, not trying to go too hard, too fast, both will help.
Yeah, two great suggestions. I mean, you want to make it fun. You want to be able to continue doing it. You don't want to go out there have a bad experience. Say, oh, forget it, I'm not doing it anymore. That's not really reaching your goal.
Plus, if something's hurting, I think it's also good for people to just go and see their doctor.
Yes.
Because sometimes people are like, nah, probably it's just hurting now.
Right.
Because I walked, or run today, but it's better to get it checked if it's like recurring.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been 30 minutes.
I know,
already.
it's so fast.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah. Can you believe it's 30 minutes already?
And for those watching the video, don't worry, we're gonna post everything that Sean has given us on the show notes so that you can check them out.
All the links, apps, all the resources that Sean has shared. I mean, it's been a quick 30 minutes, but a very informative 30 minutes.
Very informative.
Sean, we want to thank you very much for being our guest on PodGym TV Live. I think, us on the East Coast and you in Ohio and the northern areas, I mean, I know people in the South don't know what we're talking about because they get nice weather all the time, but we're just breaking into spring here. It's been kind of a cold spring, so it's got good timing, I think, for people. I think they're getting out and they want to know, I mean, if I'm getting out there and starting a running program, what's some of the best ways to start, and I think some great information here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, thank
Sean,
you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you for being on PodGym TV Live.
Yeah, and if people have questions and want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Where's the best place?
Yeah.
Sure. I think the easiest place is Twitter. I really pay attention to Twitter, and I'm at Sean Brown, which I know will be posted as well. So feel free to try to reach out to me there. If you get yourself running and you join Daily Mile, hit me up there. That link will be there too. And again, be happy to help, happy to answer any questions people have.
Excellent. Well, very good. Well, I think that does it.
Oh man, that was a great walk. Wasn't that a great episode of Sean Brown? Some great tips there.
I love all his tips.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Especially the one when my favorite really is the one wherein he talked about safety.
Yeah. And also the apps.
Yes.
And you know what I found that was really good was, and I didn't know this. We live in a kind of a colder climate. Is when you go outside, lots of times, especially in spring, you don't know what to dress for. Yeah. And the whole idea of looking at the temperature and kind of adding 15 to 20 degrees, and that's really kind of how you feel when you're running. So that was a really good tip.
Yeah, I love
Absolutely.
Those tips.
So I think that'll do it, huh? But before we go, we want to talk about our sponsor, and that's furrysketches.com. And I know you can talk about it a little bit more for people who don't know about Furry Sketches.
Yeah, furrysketches.com is a place for your inspiration. It's also a place where you can get your custom pet portrait. So you just go to furrysketches.com/order to order your portrait right now.
Excellent. So there you go. And then we've been getting a lot of dogs. Right, and now some cats, because we said, "Oh, why don't you send them some cats?"
And any kind
of pet, right?
Yeah, like.
So who knows what we'll get? We put that challenge out.
And I think it's also important for us to talk about where they can also find the podcast.
Yes,
I think that's very important.
That's right. Now this podcast is at podjam.tv/Inspiring Connections, and there'll be a link in the show notes. But for those of you watching or listening to this podcast, a lot of this material comes from we do a live show on Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's podjam.tv/live, and that's through Google Hangouts.
And if they want to just download and don't want to watch videos, this is also available via audio podcast.
Yep.
And it's available on iTunes and
now Stitcher.
There you go.
For those of you who use the Stitcher Radio app, you can search Inspiring Connections on Stitcher. You'll find us. And you can listen streaming through Stitcher.
Yeah.
So there you go. Another episode in the books.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is Marty and Misty with Inspiring Connections, and we'll see you next week.
Go.